Hi, welcome to the Not All CEOs Are a Dick podcast. That's what we've gone with. We wanted to,
I like the name.
We originally wanted it to be Not All CEOs Are Dicks, but then moderators would get rid of that, but they can't get rid of it if it's my name. So,
It made me smile.
Yeah,
Alex.
might as well go for a dick joke straight away. Welcome, Nigel. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
So, me and Nigel have known each other a little while. The thing that I specialise in recruitment is what Nigel's business does. So we've come across each other at various occasions, and Nigel actually lives fairly close to me as well. So it's handy in that regard. So he hasn't had to travel too far after, 100-mile-an-hour winds or whatever last night.
Yeah.
So Nigel, do you want to take a bit of a chance to introduce yourself and explain a bit about what you're doing now has changed slightly, but do you want to explain a bit about yourself and
Sure.
what you do?
Yeah, sure. As Alex said, my name's Nigel Clark. I'm older than I look, sadly.
Lies.
But I spent the first 20 years of my career being a lawyer in the City of London, and the first couple of years in the City of London. Then I travelled around the world as a lawyer doing city-type stuff. I came back to the UK 10 years ago to set up a business to try and not disrupt, because that's the wrong word to use for the legal industry, but help modernise the legal industry in a sense of trying to build a business. So actually, I'm a capitalist trying to make money building a business in legal. I've got a bit of an entrepreneurial itch that I realised I needed to scratch, and got a bit bored being in sort of big law world. So
the bigger the law, the worse it becomes, isn't it? It's a slow-moving machine.
Yeah, so basically I haven't played as a solicitor for 10 years and built a business, still help a few friends do stuff with their companies, and I've now picked up a non-exec position with a large Australian company because I used to live and work there, and that's quite good as well. So I'm helping them grow, expand into different countries as well.
Nice.
So the business that I'm a major shareholder of is a business called Nexa, which Alex, you know very well, of course, which is basically a platform for self-employed solicitors. I'm staying involved with that, but stepping back from the day-to-day running of the business, and then looking at other opportunities to keep myself happy and look after my wife and 3 kids.
Yeah, and keep yourself entertained.
Yes, because like you, Alex, I need to be entertained constantly, I think.
Yeah, but I think the reason me and you, because we've met a few times, and I think we get on pretty much straight away, and I think we're cut from a similar cloth in the respect that if you're not moving forward, you feel like you're not moving. So the sort of day-to-day monotony of things certainly isn't where I thrive, and I'm sure you would probably say the same of yourself. It's
absolutely.
Wanting to push it forward, wanting to diversify or not necessarily diversify, but make things better and improve the operation and grow it. I've watched Nexa for a little while, of course, because it's my world and has been for a long time, and it's been nice seeing it develop and not lose its sense of what it is, because I think a lot of people along the way can lose their sense of what they are as they grow, and it just by nature becomes a corporate machine where everything's about profit above people. In terms of sort of your stepping away, is that more to pursue these other things? Well, not stepping away, but is that more to pursue your other interests and also realising that perhaps it's at a stage where it needs someone to keep the thing on the rails rather than push it in the same way?
Yeah, I talking about sort of career and what drives us and that sort of stuff, and how you and I are cut from a similar cloth, Alex. It's building a business is incredibly hard, as you know yourself,
and stressful.
Yes, and you've got to be properly, fully passionate about it. You've got to actually love. For me, there's no point in doing it unless you absolutely love the product and the service, the thing you're trying to do. And I'm not saying I don't love that, but you've got to be. It's got to be your life. Yeah, you've got to absolutely devote 24/7 to doing that. And anyone who tells you that you don't is wrong.
Yeah,
or won't be successful with the building of that business. And so, if I've got to your point, I've got various things that I need to be stimulated. I love being around people. I actually spent a lot of the first 20 years of my career doing international stuff.
Yeah.
And Nexa is UK focused at the moment, domestically, intentionally so. We looked at other opportunities, and it's also focused on looking after solicitors.
Yeah.
Now, I've been involved with solicitors for
A long time.
quite a long time now, and part of me wants to work in other industries,
Yeah,
and I've been really lucky with Nexa. I've learned so much about building businesses because the group, I call them the Brains Trust, those of us that own Nexa,
Yeah.
we put two businesses together 4 years ago, and I came from the other business. The Nexa shareholder group was already sorted, and they welcomed me in, and I learned a lot because there are others that are non-lawyers that have built businesses before.
Yeah.
So again, the thing that, I need, as I said, need to be constantly stimulated, but also trying to improve myself, learn, take on, be curious, all that good stuff. And so with Nexa, it's been really successful. We've got a really good base, and you talk about, we have lots of graphs and curves and all this sort of stuff.
Trajectory's heading in the right direction.
And partly me, but also partly the team, we're constantly looking at the six of us that own it, going, right, let's make sure we've got the right people in the right position to do all that sort of stuff.
Am I the right person for it in this moment? Sort of thing.
So I don't think, you always want people to be desperate for you to stay on. When I mentioned it, we're like, actually, that's not a bad idea. Because it's always phases of a business. I think it's dangerous to put timelines on it or financial targets, but you talk about phases, and Next is going to go through another phase. Someone said to me the other day, a management consultant said, you go from being a big small business to a small big business, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's a very different mentality. But that's the bit where I think it's so important that it manages to keep itself in that moment, because so many businesses in that moment transition from really friendly, everyone gets on, management are really involved, to all of a sudden it's now corporate, that's removed. And actually, when that transition happens, a lot of people can fall out of love with that entity, because all of a sudden now it's not about the people anymore. And I'm a great believer in people first businesses, where you look after the people, business sort of looks after itself, because people want to be there, they're happy, they're excited about it, they're as passionate. Well, they're not necessarily ever going to be as passionate about it as you are, because they won't own it in the same way, but they have a passion for it, they want to see it succeed. And I think a lot of businesses lose their way when they go in that transition, because all of a sudden it's sort of that 100 to 150, 200 window, where all of a sudden everything is about numbers and balance sheets, and you can lose sight of the thing that made it that really successful, really attractive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's the biggest challenge, and now being on the board of a much bigger business, it's really interesting to see it from a big business, because that for me is what really separates the good from the bad, or the great from the good, because it's about brand and culture. And if you're building a business and it was successful because of certain things, you'd be silly not to keep building, retain that thing. And I've seen it in law firms, honestly, get to a point where some sort of scale, and I used to think of it as about 50 partners in law firm terms, and then it gets you lose that
sense of what it is.
Whether it's for the customers or the employees, the staff, your people. And so it's a real challenge, and we're constantly trying to challenge ourselves to say, hang on, what are we famous for? What are we good at? Why do people buy from us? And why do people join us? And that sort of stuff. And
it's almost trying to stay humble, because I think a lot of people, when you get to a certain level of success, start to believe their own BS and start to
they do. And then
it's a real risky place.
And it's amazing. I was reading something maybe in the Sunday Times even yesterday about something about loads of CEOs that built their own business coming back into the businesses after they flogged it. And you can look at it really cynically and go, well, they got loads for it, and then, but actually I think, and they listed a load of people, and you can see it. There's a number of brands.
Well, a family friend did it, one of the biggest developers in the country. That's exactly what he did. He sold the business for about 100 million quid. And it's a household name developer. So it's in the south of England, it's one of the biggest by a mile. Sold it, and then the business actually in reality started to fall apart, because a lot of it was because it was sort of the top down, he's really friendly, he's really nice, he had a certain ethos, all of that sort of stuff, replaced by effectively an employee to all intents and purposes. And it lost sight of what it was. Everything started to fall apart, bring him back in, and so they just basically gave him a load of shares back and said, come back. And he went back in and restabilized the ship, got it back in the right trajectory. But in that moment, realised that actually just exiting wasn't the right thing to do. It actually stitched up the business rather than helped the business. And yeah, it's a tricky thing, because certainly being aware of the fact that I'm quite similar to yourself, I have that moment of I'm not the right CEO for this business longer term. The reality is I'm all about strategy, I'm all about growing it, I'm all about that sort of stuff. But the day-to-day running and sort of looking at balance sheets and stuff like that, to be honest, I don't know if it's ever the same for you. To a degree, I don't understand it enough, so I find it actually quite stressful. I look at it, I'm like, I don't get it.
You need a load of different skills.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is key is knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
And there are some things, and this is why it's worked well at Nexa, because we've got a really good mix of skill sets and balance. You've got to know what you don't know. It took me quite a long time in life to work out, know what you don't, and then be confident and say, I don't know this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also know what you're actually never going to bother to understand, because you might find it boring.
Yeah.
I'm not a brilliant details person, which sounds a bit weird from someone who spent 20 years as a solicitor, but the compliance piece, law, highly regulated, it's not my thing, the details and the compliance piece. But got a my other half in the business at Nexa.
Yeah.
Elliot, he's brilliant at all that sort of stuff. And I much prefer the sort of run around, face off, shake hands, schmoozy type stuff. And so you've got to get the right balance in any business. I was thinking about the Superdry as a brand, the clothes brand.
Yeah.
The guy has come in, he's come back at least twice. I think it's Julian Dunkerton or somebody.
Right.
And there was another example, which was somebody, I think, one of the gym brands, Pure Gym, or one of those as well, where the founders come back in. But the skill set, my best man, so one of my closest friends, completely different to me, and we both think each other are complete muppets. No idea how either of us have been remotely successful in life, both personally and career-wise. But he went into large corporate sales guy, academically hated school and that sort of stuff, but he was brilliant. People like him. Yeah, people like him. So sales was the obvious place for him. And then he went big US corporates, computer business called EMC. Then he was Google for a while, and then he went to a business called Eventbrite.
Right.
And he's now gone to another. And I talked to him once I
weirdly know what that is, because I booked something through Eventbrite this morning.
Yeah, well,
so,
it's good.
So literally, it popped up. A drinks at an expo. It's like an Eventbrite link. I was like, I know what this is.
So I had a really interesting chat with him where I was going, I need to pick your brains. And it's quite rare for us to sit down and admit that we want to pick the brains of each other. But when I was sort of starting Nexa, talk about systems and processes, and he talked about phases.
Yeah.
And I said, what would you do? And he went, I don't know, I'm a phase 2 guy.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
You bring me in later.
He speaks now Californian and all this sort of stuff because he's hung out there. But you
build the thing and I'll drive it.
You get to a certain profit level or a certain revenue level, or it might be a number of employees, or it might be customers, whatever that phase was. And then when you've got a bit of scale, he said, that's me. I come in and go, right, okay, we need to professionalize this, sort out process and system. And that's really interesting. I think that's a little bit of where Nexa is and that sort of stuff going. We need to, obviously, for me, the key is to retain why we've been successful initially and carry it on, while you inevitably have to have efficient processes and systems.
Well,
and
otherwise
that sort of
something
stuff.
will sink it.
Yeah,
like
otherwise
there
it
will
just
be a
all falls
disaster.
apart, and that's the, there's a, I don't know where it came from, but there's a phrase in terms of the financials, and I know you and I have talked a bit about the money side of it, which you can't shy away from. This is business. It's incredibly
It's got to be
important.
profit-making, otherwise it's pointless.
However, loads of us want to change the world and that sort of stuff. We're not a charity, we're building a business. And it's the phrase that I remind myself all the time is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king.
Yeah.
And that is helped over the last 10 years.
Especially when you go through the trickier times as well, because when you're going through those trickier times, cash is beyond king at that point, because you could be generating loads of theoretical revenue, but if your clients are going bust left, right, and centre, it's meaningless. And the bit that matters is what's in the bank at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And there'll be stats. It's something horrendous, like 9 out of 10 businesses fail because of cash flow.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
all those. Some people think all those things like getting paid quickly.
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff is so incredibly important. And as you get bigger, stays incredibly important.
Yeah.
It always is, whether you're a one-person band or you've got the business I'm a non-exec of. We have 20,000 employees. It's exactly the same stuff.
It's
drives
a beast
it. Yeah. And the business I'm involved with it runs. It's called QSR, Quick Service Restaurants.
Fine.
So but they look at it, talk about trying to retain the same thing. They build a restaurant. They're a KFC operator.
Oh, fine.
Taco Bell, other brands. They used to have their own brands.
So those all franchises, effectively?
Yeah.
So they just have shitloads of franchises?
Yeah, we're a restaurant operator.
Fine.
So you talk to the guys that run our business. I mean boys and girls that run our business. They talk about brand, culture, employees, customer. They build a store.
Yep.
A restaurant. They call them stores.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to learn the lingo. And they say, we get it right. We get the right team in. You've got the formula to how to make the secret sauce with the chicken, all that sort of stuff. But it's all about that. If you get it right, that's it. Then you go and you build another one.
Yeah.
And then you build another one. But you've got to do it. And it's, you
don't build 30 at a time and let some fail.
No. You've got to go, because it's amazing how, particularly now, the world is a place where you can exchange views with someone. The business I'm in with Australia, you can exchange views with someone over the other side of the world within about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And people are really,
Well,
so
it's
it's
a big
really
wide world
different.
now.
Yeah, it's really different.
And culturally, the shifts are more relevant, because you forget there's cultural differences when you're the other side of a screen from someone. And yeah, I've seen a lot of recruiters fall foul of that, sort of dealing in the Middle East or anywhere else,
honestly,
and just
culture
making some real clangers, because they're going, oh yeah, no, they're just on the phone. They seem friendly, and forgetting that person somewhere entirely different in the world who deals with things in a different way.
You can't underestimate how important that sort of stuff is, and people, humans.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand who you're dealing with, whether it's a customer, an employee, or your boss, a shareholder, whoever it is. I mean, I was in with the food business. I was in Amsterdam last week, which is where we run the European piece, and we have restaurants in Germany as well. And you just talk to the Germans, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's completely different. So you can make these ridiculous assumptions. And as you know, I lived and worked in China as well, and they used to go absolutely nuts with Americans and Brits just coming in and just making assumptions that well, this is how we do it.
Bull in a China shop approach.
No. So I've fortunately for me, I love traveling, people, almost all of them. and trying to understand them. And I think that's a lot of businesses, to your point about scaling stuff, is they think they can just have a cookie cutter, and they forget who their culture is, the people.
Yeah, my world, the world of recruitment, is prime for that. Is the number of agencies that get to 40, 50 consultants and then implode. And they're doing really well up to that point, because they're all sort of swimming in the same direction. And then loads of money's coming in. They've got 40, 50 people that they're making good money off of. And then all of a sudden the owners go, oh, now this is, I am the big I am, I've made it. And almost overnight, like one that I worked at, about 30, 40 people went and started another agency on their own, because they're like, nah, not having this. And it's just plays over and over again. And there's a group I'm in, and they call it the valleys of death, where you think you're doing well, but actually you're heading towards a precipice without realising it, because you start to believe your own BS. And it happens in your world. I of course know of many businesses that have gone down that road.
Yeah.
But it's always unfortunate to see, because those things often up until those points are amazing entities. Yeah. But then all of a sudden it's just become something else, and it's a pity, because actually, if a lot of the time if they stood to their guns, the end result might take slightly longer, but would be 10 times what it would be going the other way. But they just lose sight of that. So look, we can't sit here and not talk about remote working and flexible working and all of that sort of stuff, because I'm going to be speaking to a lot of people and doing this, and most of them aren't going to be necessarily anti-flexible working and anti-remote working, but they're certainly going to be more cautious of it than perhaps myself and yourself are. Yeah. Because Next is would you describe it remote first in terms of the lawyers? They're remote, aren't they?
I mean, that's the conceptually the whole basis of our business, I think.
I'm
is
always
to
cautious
enable...
when I say it, though,
No,
because
Well,
some
that's
people
what
go
it is.
displaced law firm, some people go, and all of these things, and some people get ultra offended if you call it the wrong thing.
It's just... there's the terms virtual, remote, whatever it is.
Virtual seems to be the trigger. If you call them virtual, people are like, it's not virtual. We've got an office, and they get really shirty about the fact that there's an office.
You're virtually a law firm. Well, not virtually a law firm. We are actually. But it's absolutely the thing that underpins what Next is trying to do. And hey, look, I have a birthday coming up on the weekend.
What, your birthday?
Yes, and I had
21.
Yeah, well, there's a 1, the first digit, but I had a big one last year. And for my generation, I think COVID, we haven't had, touch wood, things aren't great at the moment, we haven't had a big geopolitical war. My parents went through, the Second World War, or were born during the Second World War, so their parents. But COVID was a massive thing. Yeah. Massive thing. And technology and COVID just changed, and I don't think you can ever overestimate over the next few years the sort of catalyst type influence of the pandemic. And
it was like the match that was lit under the fire, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've said often that I think we did about 10 to 20 years of development in how we work in about 6 months, out of necessity, because I'm sure you would have been in the same spot as me, where when I was speaking to lawyers, because I was placing lawyers in remote environments, I've been doing this a little bit longer than you have in that world. When I was first talking to people were like, you can't do it. It physically doesn't work that way. And when I used to say a consultant lawyer, it would be, no, that's a partner who's retired and they're sort of retained to keep their clients there, and they're sort of, they'll go and play golf occasionally and do the odd file. And overnight, almost, COVID came along, lawyers started getting furloughed, firms started to panic, and consultancy environments just went bang. And now, because less so me now, as you know, I'm concentrating on building ALS, but members of the team, Rob over there and Anna and others, when they're speaking to lawyers, they're actively considering that. Whereas if you'd gone back 4 years ago, just prior to it all kicking, well, in fact, 4 years ago now would have been prior to it kicking off. You would have had conversations with people about remote working, and it would have been the first time they'd ever heard of it. They never would have heard of the likes of,
absolutely.
because like you've got Keystone, Setford's, Gunnar Cook, you guys, Excello, and others that are really reasonably large scale now. Like these are no longer these sort of piddly little firms with a couple of people. But you go, have you heard of any of these? And they go, unless they've had them on the other side, they wouldn't know. And even then, if they had them on the other side, they may not have even realised that lawyer's working remotely, because nobody really, it wasn't in anyone's brain. It wasn't something that people thought about. Whereas overnight, the world had to move to remote.
It's a proper accelerator. It would have I think it would have gone there eventually, because the next generation and all that sort of stuff. And I'm the youngest of 4. My brothers and sisters have kids, so I have nieces and nephews. My youngest is 9, and he's the youngest on my side of the family. And then my oldest nephew is 32. So there's a whole range. There's 10 of them.
So there's a generation.
So it's been really
almost
interesting to see the ones that have started work and all that sort of stuff. And I'm talking about the old traditional sort of what we call office workers, the white collar workers,
the 9 to 5 sort of thing.
But I have nieces and nephews in the US, and I have them here. And then my wife's the youngest of 3, and we have kids.
Same.
We have nieces and nephews, another 9, including my 3 on that side. So it's been really interesting, with ours being the youngest, to see that next generation. So we can talk law all the time, and I joined Next, and we put those 2 businesses together 4 years ago, 24th of January actually. 2 days.
Fine,
The 4-year anniversary. But if you think about, my brother-in-law owns quite a big retailer. That completely transformed, accelerated their online business. It's the same with restaurants, because I know the Deliveroo's this world, Uber Eats, so I'm involved with that, obviously, with the KFC stuff. It's accelerated so many different things that probably would have gone accelerated anyway, because the way technology is moving, that sort of stuff. But yes, so for me to go back to the flexible working thing is, people are very quick to judge. I think it's about choice, and that's the way I've tried to play it with Nexa in legal. Is actually giving people that want to do this job, this career, give them a choice.
Yeah.
But if they, or at least there'll be options. If go back to the law thing, if you want to go to an office, there are law firms that just have a physical bricks and mortar. Go there, absolutely fab, and you can all sit around and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But also, if you don't ever want to see any of your colleagues ever, and you want to work, you can do that as well. And,
or do it in a way that you have more control over.
Yeah.
Because I have this a lot in recruitment because and legal's the same. There's a massive push to get people back in the office now from a lot of businesses.
I hear that.
It's almost flipping the other way. And look, that's great for the likes of myself and you because there's going to be people that go, fuck no, I'm not doing that, and push against it. And we are a natural home for those sorts of people. But at the same time, I think we're going through a sort of, often when there's a very rapid change in a direction, it drags some people into the future, but other people resent that move and want to drag it back. And look, if I had a 20,000 square foot office that looked like the Mary Celeste, would I be sat there thinking, I need people back in this office? Possibly. I can't, and I'm all about remote working, but if I was paying 100 grand a month or whatever for a space that nobody's in, would that mentally make me think we need people back in? Possibly. I don't know. I'm not in that situation, fortunately.
Yeah, but it's... And to go back to the discussion we're having about the business that you're running or you're working for or that you buy from, that's where it becomes really important now with the options that people have about how they will work is what business are we?
Yeah.
What are we trying to be? And that, as you said, that if you're a business, got to just say it's a law firm with a 20,000 square foot office space, make that office space amazing.
Yeah.
Be the business to go, okay, we've got one office, we want people to use it because you know what, we're
Well, a bit
tidying.
like Google used to do with because Google did it with tech, didn't they? Everyone else had big open offices where everyone was sat there, and they put in slides and pool tables and ping pong and bars and food, and now everyone takes the piss out of ping pong tables and all of that sort of stuff because it went the other way. But at the same time, if you're making a place nice, and people will want to be there, if you make it a crappy just white space, sterile, black chairs, white desks, everyone's going to be hating it.
It's understanding from a sort of employee perspective. What do you want to do? Because again, just reiterate it. We're just people.
Yeah.
We're just humans. You might be the CEO of the biggest Wall Street business ever, or you might be like you and I, just trying to build and get some traction in different markets.
Minnow's trying to be a bit more interesting.
But it's people.
Yeah.
And, look at it from a customer's perspective, your banker's perspective, your employee. But, we are just humans, and don't ever lose sight of that.
No. And I think businesses often, it's back to that sort of profit first mentality where they are so concentrating on that they forget that the person over there does this and the person over there does this, because it just becomes a number to them. They're just a tool rather than a person. And it's a depressing state of affairs when that happens. And you can see why people become disenfranchised with it, because it's quite, if you're in a business where you feel passionate about it and you're enjoying it and you feel valued and you feel like what you think or say matters, chances are you're going to be happy there. Whereas if you're somewhere where obviously you don't matter and your opinion's irrelevant and you're going to be shot down for having an opinion, and the chances are you're going to move. You're going to.
Well, yeah, and fair dues. I'm 51.
Yeah.
I will be on Saturday. I'm admitting it now.
I'd had a guess that was the magic number.
But it's really funny being not in the middle, sadly, because I suspect I'm not. Middle-aged would be a stretch.
You might be. You could do 102.
Not with my
possible.
lifestyle, Alex. But I think fair dues to the whatever it is, Gen X, all the different labels for the next generation of workers. They're not going to take any shit.
No.
They don't want to be told what to do all the time. And you know what? I admire that. Good on them. They want to work because, coming out of a global war, whatever it was, or growing up in the 50s, it was women stayed at home and men just went in, clock in and all that stuff. That's
dead.
It's gone. So go with it. Stop trying to put people in different pots. If you're building business or working in a business, embrace it. And I get really grumpy. You talk about profit first, and then there is lots of, I get grumpy of people who are judging wokeism.
Yeah.
All right. There's nothing wrong with people saying planet first.
Yeah.
People first. There's nothing wrong with.
Well, it's
talking
what's
about
important to them,
diversity,
isn't it?
Inclusivity. That's great.
Yeah.
So it should be. And you know what? The best businesses, the places where people wanted to work, and they were doing that anyway.
Yeah. People were allowed to be who they are.
Yeah. Just this whole. People are very quick, and I saw it when I lived in China, and it
Well, I guess it's more
I've learned
extreme
about trying to be
culturally there.
open-minded. Just
Yeah.
approach everything and try and empathise, sympathise, whatever it is, but understand where your staff member might be coming from, or where
Yeah.
your customer might be coming from, your client might be coming from, or then flip it round and understand where your boss might be coming from. So that it shouldn't have to take things like going planet first, people, but it should be
But there's
natural
always-
to good humans,
Yeah.
but it's not
But
always the case.
I think about this because I've got, similar to yourself, I've got a young family, and I have to become more aware of things that were of no relevance when I was a kid because they're growing up in a very different world than I grew up in. And the way information is assimilated now is so different. Like YouTube basically didn't exist when I was a kid. Social media in the form it is now did not exist.
Oh, no.
If people were sharing pictures, well, even stuff like this, no two business people would be sat in a room talking to each other and filming it like that.
Yeah.
If you even mentioned that to someone, they'd be like, "What, are we going to court? Like, what is this for evidence?" There would be no logic to it. And the reality is that people that go too extreme one way and shout too much about what they're doing are only a product of the fact that there's people on the extreme, the other side, who are the dinosaurs who are shouting how it's all a load of bollocks.
Yeah.
And the problem it's not even a problem, it's just how society is now. Historically, somebody at an extreme would have a chat with somebody else and they would just go, "I don't agree with you," and that would be it. Whereas now we exist in a world where that conversation exists with millions of other eyes on it, all throwing their 10 pence in. And the benefit of that, there's a benefit and a downside of that. The benefit of it is we should therefore develop as a human race at a far greater rate because you're being shown so many more ideas quicker. But the downside of that is the people that hate it are going to be a lot more vocal as well, and it's going to cause a divide when the reality is most people sit somewhere in the middle. The 99.999% of people are trying to go through life to being good humans in one way or another. They might be selfish, they might be unpleasant in isolation, but they don't go into every situation going, "I'm going to screw you over." But you see the two extremes of the world in these these examples, I think that's what causes people to sort of be anti-woke, is because they're increasingly finding themselves on that extreme, like the negative extreme.
Yeah, the noise is all coming from the extremities, as you say, and that's exactly right. Whereas actually, the vast majority of us sit somewhere in the middle.
Well, it's you don't care because it's like it doesn't affect me. So it's like you do you.
I do sometimes pick up friends and family sometimes going, why do you care about this particular thing that you're getting vocal about? But it is really funny, and I talk about not underestimating the importance of lockdowns and stuff as a way, but also, I mean, social media, massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Well,
I'm not a natural, but just trying to understand it. Whether you're a parent, say just a parent. It's not just anything, is it? But or you're involved in a business. It is an absolutely key part of society.
Yeah.
Now, and I was taking the piss out of my 12-year-old daughter last night. She had these headphones on, and she was, and I was just saying, you've been around me today, but you've to me. You're just walking around these things, and I don't get it. But she's engaging with that sort of stuff, and it's just. I keep repeating it. Be open-minded, trying to understand it, and that the social media influence, and the fact is, for every person probably under the age of 30, they have grown up with something completely different. So for anyone, God forbid, you're over 30. Yeah. I'm way over 30. You've got to understand.
I'm nearly 40 now. I've got 2 years away from 40 now.
I didn't know whether you were going to admit it in front of the camera.
Yeah, no,
but,
38 just.
Understand when you're dealing with a 25-year-old that they've grown up with a handheld or something, and the way they've consumed their information and influences is completely different
Well,
to the way we did.
I've had
you know.
my first moment of realization in how old I am now, because Sasha, who you've met, is nearer in age, significantly nearer in age to my daughter than me, and that's the first time in my professional life that that's occurred. And I'm just going, hang on a minute, I'm not quite old enough to be her dad yet. I'm not quite there, but there was that moment of, hang on, your age. Oh no, and doing the maths.
Believe
going,
me, it
this,
accelerates a lot from now. You know, that whole, how old are the police? And then prime ministers. And I sit there and go, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, he's
the
fairly
only
young
thing that
now,
makes me happy is looking at Biden and Trump. Okay? They're quite old.
There's still time for me.
It's all right.
Yeah, I do. There is definitely a thing where you see American politics, the most powerful, notionally the most powerful country in the world, and you go, you are accepting a pensioner as your leader.
Yeah,
so there's time for us yet. We still accept that pensioners are wiser than us. Let's hope that
Really?
remains.
Yeah.
Well, so weirdly, and whether this bit will get included, I'm starting to think we need Trump back. I know it's a mental situation, but with how mental the world is getting, actually having a bloke that takes no crap, it actually is probably not a bad idea.
You know, it's US politics. The US is so important to us, and we can edit this bit out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have my eldest brother lives in the States.
Fine.
They voted Trump.
Yeah.
Him and his wife are proper. They don't like him.
No.
But they're proper Republicans, and
Yeah.
they don't like, so there's all sorts of, it's very easy, particularly when you're sitting outside the country, to judge it on sort of statesmanship and foreign policy and that
Yeah,
because
we only see the 1%.
Yeah, it's, I mean, and we've had some comedy as well. So
The thing, I remember, waking up and seeing Trump was in, and waking up and seeing Boris was in, and thinking, I don't know how this is going to play out, but it's going to be interesting. So I've met Boris on a couple of occasions, and yeah, when he got in, I was like, this is going to be entertaining. We're going to have fun, and we did. There's an element of waking up every morning and your country's effectively a soap opera. You don't know what's going to happen in the next episode. There's quite good fun.
Again, look at it in phases. I look at it in phases. He would suggest that his only job, and love him or hate him, and get Brexit done. That's the thing they played to, and it worked. And he got loads of votes and that sort of stuff. So different phases, different stuff. You bring it back to the business thing. I mean, the flexible working thing.
Yeah, this is the problem with me and you talking.
Well, no, I was only going to
go back. We do divert, so thank you for pulling it back.
I wouldn't be. I don't necessarily. I like meeting people.
Yeah.
Right. We've met twice in the last month. Great.
Yeah.
It's nice to eyeball, have a conversation, relax. My whole career, in fact, my whole life is around relationships. I get a buzz out of being with people and that sort of stuff. But I'm evangelical about flexible working because of the choice. Doesn't mean I'm going to ram it down everyone's throat. Just like, and in particularly in the legal industry, there wasn't choice.
No.
And so that's why I embrace it and love it. Of course, I'm trying to make a few quid out of building a business.
It's better to be at the beginning of that embracing rather than at the end of it.
So I think, if I was starting a legal business now, you could go, we could do like that. But if you're starting a legal business 30 years ago, you go solicitor in the UK, solicitor barrister thing, or an in-house, but that's within the company anyway. So we're not setting up an in-house unit. And you go, okay, wow, there's not a lot of choice about how we would do it.
Black or white.
With barrister chambers or solicitor partnership in a building.
Yeah.
But now you'd go, okay, or are we tech focused? Are we people in the office focused? Or let's look at actually what product we're delivering to the clients. So choice.
Well, the irony of legal is that the legal world thought the big shift would be ABSs, and everyone thought, oh, this is the future. But actually, it was a red herring. It was just a different. It just allowed them to be a different corporate structure, and it attracted a bit of external money. But in the first instance, it attracted next to no external money. Like the whole Tesco law is going to come in and take over, and it's going to commoditize legal, and it's going to destroy. None of that happened.
No.
Whereas I always said throughout, because I was in the profession as an external person supplying it at that point, and I remember having conversations with people, and they're like, "Oh, we're fucked. Someone like Richard Branson's going to come in, and he's going to decimate the legal world because everyone will go with him because it's a known brand." And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, but it doesn't actually serve a purpose that benefits benefits lawyers in any way. and it also doesn't benefit the clients in any way. So
Yeah.
it's not going to take off. And that's why I latched onto back, I don't know how many years ago now, 14, 15, I don't know, I'm 28 now, and I was probably 21, 22. So a fair length of time ago, 16
38.
years. Oh yeah, 38 now. Yeah.
28. Sorry, I just picked you up.
Yeah, well, that is true. I knocked 10 years off.
So
but
you've been doing.
I've been doing consultancies.
Banging the flexible working job.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, it
and
is forever in this part. Of the
and
business,
and I believed from the get-go this is the future because of exactly what you said. It gives that option.
Yeah.
And I'm not publicly, of course, I'm going to say that flexible working environments are better because that's what I've specialised in for a very long time, and I've seen the transformational difference it's made to lawyers and recruiters and others going down that road. But I do completely agree with you. It's about choice. There's people that are going to always want to work from an office.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's fine. You go and work from the office. You're not a worse lawyer. You're not a worse person for that. And same with the businesses. If businesses want people to work from an office, that's cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as, but I think the issue I have at the moment is this weird thing where people are trying to get people, because there's always a war on talent. It's always difficult to get the best people. So a lot of the time now, people are going, well, what do those people want? They want flexible working. So they'll sell this flexibility until they come in. And then they go, nah, you have to be in 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah, that's really dangerous place to go, isn't it?
And it's so common. Like, we're hearing it all the time.
Yeah.
So the main thing I'm recruiting for now is recruiters to join us, really. I'm in the market talking to recruiters all the time. And the number of businesses that are like, yeah, join us. We're really flexible. And but for the first 6 months, you have to be in the office every day. And straight away, you're like, well, that's not what you're selling.
No,
you're lying to attract people.
That I think that's a really dangerous place to go. And other than the fact it might create opportunities and chaos within the industry, which might work for us both. But that's really good. I mean, the just playing with the legal thing still, and it's something that the industry doesn't do very well, is be more customer centric about it.
No.
So it's we were just talking about sort of supply side, so the people that work in it, but what about the buy side? Now there are people that will for a business or an individual, legal is usually a necessary evil.
Yeah.
You're either having a fight with somebody, or
no
just
one's doing it through choice.
But some people might never want to meet the lawyer and will just buy it on an app and do that sort of stuff. Somebody from an individual perspective might want to meet their lawyer, and that's fine. Same with businesses. Big businesses, small businesses. So you got to work. That's why different types of customer, different types of offering, that sort of stuff. And then you've got to go back to the who are we, what do we want to be famous for, what do we want to be good at, and then look, okay, these are the sort of people we want to do, that sort of stuff. And actually, it's why I've got this love-hate relationship with law. It's just like, because it was just only one way of doing stuff. Now, cat's out the bag. You can do anything you like. But
as you say, you said it earlier, the people that were buying legal services 10 years ago were the generation of people who weren't used to the internet and all of that sort of stuff, because the people that are buying houses are in their 30s, 40s at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the people who are buying legal services, who are running businesses, are in their 30s, 40s now, who've grown up with tech. And we've all had a laptop at school and all of that sort of stuff.
And they trust it.
Well,
and then trust is massive,
Well, and
trust
also,
the data, trust the tech.
And we all like immediate gratification. No one wants anymore to say, hi, can we have a chat? And someone go, I've got a space in 3 weeks' time. Historically, people would do that and they'd think, oh, it makes me look like I'm more in demand. But now people will just go, okay, Google, right, find me somebody else that does that, and find somebody that can do it on a timescale that you govern. And I think that the generation who are coming up now, that I don't even think I sit in, I'm apparently a millennial just, but the generation that's coming behind me, Amazon, how do you buy stuff? Amazon. How do you assimilate content? Go on the internet. Whereas for me, I still remember encyclopedias. I remember getting all the volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica and all that sort of stuff. And if you wanted to find out about the solar system or whatever, you go through the pages and there you go. Whereas now, hi Siri, how do I do this? Or Alexa, tell me this.
I smiled when you said encyclopedias because I was with a colleague from the KFC business who was probably a similar age to me, and he worked kind of in his year off. He was traveling in Australia. He was door to door selling Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, he
So we
was.
were having a giggle about it just because you're just like, oh my God.
So in terms of the next 5 years, what do you see yourself doing over the next sort of, it doesn't have to be 5 years specifically. I'm more talking foreseeable future. Like, where do you see yourself going?
I've reflected on this quite a lot over the last 12 months, not just because I turned 50
Yeah.
or that, it was right for me to let someone else sort of take the reins at Nexa. It's, I've sort of thought about my career in 3 different stages. So I had the legal bit,
Yep.
career as a lawyer, which, I had a great time doing it. I wasn't necessarily the sort of run-of-the-mill solicitor, but I had a great time in that part of it. Then I've spent 10 years building businesses, effectively. And now the sort of final stage of my career, I actually want what people talk about portfolio things. Now, whether that's, Next is going to be very important.
Yeah.
Next is an absolute key plank of it. I've got this public company non-exec role. I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind another one of those. I'd like to maybe get my hands dirty again with a
Scale
startup,
up.
whether it's in tech or whether it's
Yeah.
so do a few different things. I'm a school governor as well.
Fine.
I coach
Be your
I
sins.
coach a kids rugby team, so I want to thread in lots of different things. And my 3 kids are incredible, so I want it's a whole about the whole life.
Well, they're at quite a
mesh.
transitional point, aren't they?
Yeah,
'Cause-
teenagers. So it's an absolute. But I love being ridiculously busy.
Yeah.
It's how I thrive, and I'm sure you're the same. I want to earn a few quid.
Yeah.
I want to be part of things.
You got to retire at some point. So.
Yeah. So and look, because I was kind of an old dad, and my youngest is 9. He's going to be wanting me to shut up for a long time to come yet. So I've still got lots of energy and passion, but I want to do different things.
Yeah.
And then what I'm looking forward to is maybe the transferable bit.
Yeah.
Take stuff from a different thing and go, oh, that could work on this thing
that
that
would
I'm
help with
helping
this.
with. So we'll see. If anyone will have me in these different portfolio options.
If anyone wants him, you know where to find him. So, in terms of if you could go over and do everything again, I don't know, this is regularly asked. Have you ever thought about that? If you had your time again, would you have gone into legal or would you have done something else?
I spent quite a few years going, why did I do this?
Yeah.
Because I knew quite early on that quite a lot of people training to be solicitors were quite different to me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't really fit in this crew.
It's quite cerebral and it
Yeah.
can be quite dry. But to the city stuff where you get pigeonholed quite quickly. My wife and I have a absolute no regrets policy.
Yeah.
And anything we've ever done. And I'm the same throughout my career in life. So I don't have any regrets about law. I had a brilliant time.
Yeah.
And I'm still having a brilliant time.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still
yeah.
well engrossed in the legal industry. So would I do anything differently? I don't think so. What really helps me, and I've got mates who are driven by money and stuff like that. I'm not driven by that. I'm driven by contentment, happiness, satisfaction, being challenged, and wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
And I've had a good time, and I want to keep having a good
Yeah,
time.
even better time.
And hopefully, you keep having a good time. You might live longer.
Yeah. But,
So,
I think contentment and all of that sort of stuff does breed to less stress. Less stress tends to help health-wise and all of that sort of stuff.
The only thing, and you do get, funny enough, you do get asked this once you give your 10 years, people are going to start asking you all these questions. Well, I wouldn't change anything. What I would love to have worked myself out at a younger age.
Yeah.
Because I have a coach now, and I love the coaching and that sort of stuff. And maybe I just fell into stuff. I wanted to go to university because I played rugby and I wanted to play rugby. That sort of stuff.
It was a way of carrying on that dream.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to go to the pub a lot and watch Neighbours and do all this. but I probably in my 20s, if and that's why there's great opportunities for the kids out there today. It's like, get to know yourself quite quickly. What makes you tick?
Well, I think
What
people are more
drives you?
aware of that now.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, we went entering the working world as you did a job and that defined you. Whereas now people are like, what do I want to be? And the job almost plays second fiddle to that. It's the means to achieve that thing.
Yeah.
And
Rather than society or parents saying you need to do this. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you still need to make ends meet.
Yeah.
That sort of
Well,
stuff.
and it still
That's
makes
not
sense to
going
end up
away.
doing something that you're passionate about and
Yeah.
get good at it and all that
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
absolutely.
But I think the interests are going to be so much more diverse, and the opportunities are going to be so much more diverse. And but yeah, let's keep it going that way. The world becomes a far more interesting place when people are allowed to experiment with ideas far more.
I mean,
effectively.
and you know this from your kids. No two people are the same.
No.
You know, you can fall from the same tree.
Yeah.
And you can be. My girls are 18 months apart, and they are built completely different. And you're just like, how does that happen? But isn't it brilliant?
Yeah,
Isn't that what's so
and,
fun about humans? It's
Yeah,
just
I completely agree, and I think I hope that is how it will be forever, and similar to your
until the robots take over the world.
yeah, until the
and
robot.
then
So every time I see a post about AI, I'm like, so I've seen how this plays out. Skynet. I know what's coming.
Yeah.
And a client we've got was at Davos at an AI thing that's attached to the World Economic thing.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about it, and I said, look, you're going to this. I don't know anyone else that's going to it. I want you to come back and be able to tell me that Skynet is not coming.
Yeah.
And if it is, I've got a basement, and I'm ready to prep it. And he came back, he went, we're a little way off Skynet. I'm going, okay, we're all right. That's all I need to know.
Check in again every year.
Because the
and let me
people
know.
there would have known.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I find it mega exciting, but also terrifying in equal measure. But I think again, we came up of a generation where all the films you'd watch about tech were tending to be tech deploying the world's nuclear arsenal on each other, or the
But
robots taking
about,
over.
You talk about exciting and terrifying. I think that's what makes life so amazing.
Yeah.
I hate roller coasters. My
Yeah.
kids love them, and they force me to go on them. And you go,
Are you at that point where you just hurt your back? Because if I go on a roller coaster now, I get off feeling like I've been beaten up by 20 people.
I used to get car sick when I was younger, and now I just like to be a control freak and drive.
Yeah.
So I don't like them. I hate them even more. The virtual reality
Yeah.
ones indoors. Jesus, I took my kids to Disney last year, but in the States. But it should be terrifying.
Yeah.
And exciting equal measure. That's what stimulates humans, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
what keeps us
Certainly
going.
It's certainly, it's like I was trying to explain to my daughter the stresses. I like stress.
Yeah.
There's bad stress, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
good stress.
There's stress that motivates you, and there's stress that becomes
absolutely,
all-consuming.
Absolutely. And it's good to be nervous about something.
Yeah.
But it kicks in the right chemicals. And the
Well, also
adrenaline
it
and
means
all
you
that
give a
stuff.
toss.
Well, exactly.
Because I think going
That's
through
right.
life being emotionless about things must be pretty depressing. Whereas actually being a bit nervous about a job interview or a bit nervous about something you're doing actually means you probably will do better because you actually care about it. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, if I turned up something blasé about it, I probably wouldn't do that well at it.
Yeah. And people will see through that.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. So, yeah, you and I really are cut from the
Yeah.
same cloth.
And we're nearer in age than you think. So, next one. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
If I could be remembered for one thing, probably being kind,
Yeah.
generous. I mean, I could say for being a good parent.
Yeah.
But I think it comes to the same thing. Just being a good person.
Yeah, an inherently
'cause
good
it's human interactions is what makes me tick and what I really care about.
I've said it a lot, and everyone's like, "Oh, wow, everyone should think this way." But in my mind, I always am thinking, "Why isn't everyone thinking this way?" Mine is, I'd like to leave the world a slightly better place than I found it. And I think if you go through life, rather than going through it selfishly, going, "What's in it for me?" Go, "How can we improve this?" Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you'll always win. There'll be occasions where you don't win in that.
Yeah.
But actually, if you've helped out someone, I sort of believe in karma, not conceptually the ideology of it, but I think if you inherently go through life being good to people, that at certain points when you need people to be good to you, chances are they will, because they'll think, that person's all right, they've done right by me, let's help them out in that moment, sort of thing. So it doesn't have to be deeply spiritual if people want to avoid it being deeply spiritual. And I think if everyone went through life doing that, a lot of the slightly foolish decisions that are made, both professionally, personally, in people's lives, would be mitigated to a degree. But for that single thing of, am I improving the world by doing this? And that world in that moment might be the business, it might be that relationship with that individual, it might be whatever it is. And if the answer to that is no, well, don't do it. And if you then don't do it, you've made the world slightly better by not being a twat.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm big into the sort of positive energy stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm quite impatient, which is one of my faults, and I'm intolerant of people that just bring negative energy to it. And so, the positive energy, try and improve,
Yeah, just don't be a bellend.
just because how are you improving the world?
So
Just moaning
the
about
last
it.
one,
Yeah.
if you can remember back this far,
Yesterday.
yes, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would that advice be?
I'm gonna deflect this to something I heard
Right.
a couple of years ago, because I'm gonna start by saying that follow the passion.
Yeah.
But I heard this guy speak. It was like the graduation for my kids' school.
Fine.
So they were the babies at the school, but they were sort of talking to A-level students as they go off into the big wide world. And he was a guy, he'd be in his 40s. He was an explorer, I think.
Cool.
He said, look, I failed all this school
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
He said,
This bit was not
but
for me.
and I hope I'm going to remember it. He had 4 tips, and I've really liked this, and I've used this for mentoring at this London university that I do. 4 tips. Follow your passion. Okay, there we go. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Follow your passion. Take some steps to actually do something about it. Learn the game. Whatever it is, you've got to understand how it's played out. Do it your way.
Yeah.
And I thought those 4 things were quite good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So if I go back, if I could sit my 18-year-old self down and go, follow your passion, and take some steps, learn the game. Don't assume you know whatever it is you go into. Don't assume you just know it, because you don't. But then do it your way. And I did, and I'd like to think I've kind of somehow, because it is your own journey, isn't it? It's a very personal thing, and somehow it's worked out all right for me so far. And just keep
still chugging along. The wheels are yet to
So,
fall off. I always tend to look backwards and go, how have they not fallen off yet? How have I kept this going? But
because you bring positive energy.
well, that's
to
exactly
stuff,
it, isn't
you know
it?
what?
Inherently looking at the world and going,
You're giving yourself
it's
a
all right.
much better chance of succeeding.
than
I guess,
just
in
going,
life,
it's crap.
whatever that looks like, because only you can work out if you're succeeding in life.
But I think those steps forward is a big thing, because a lot of people have all these passions but go, I can't do it.
Yeah,
or,
they don't.
or
do
they're
it.
too afraid to
that,
try.
That takes some steps thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because my eldest, she's a dancer and an artist.
Yeah.
Right? Go on.
Yeah.
Don't be guided by, how am I going to earn a living?
Yeah,
Just,
you don't have to be an
but take
accountant.
some steps,
Like,
work
just-
out. Exactly. It's someone who fell into being a solicitor. But yeah, you're right, because kids, they love stuff. That's what they want to do. They all have passions.
Yeah.
But then if you want to try and follow it, but take some steps.
Yeah.
And-
Don't just sit there and hope it's going to fall into your lap. Because again, I think that's a risk people are taking now.
Yeah.
Is just thinking, I'll just say it and then hope. We had a tete-a-tete with somebody on social media who went, I can't get my. We did a post about following your dream or whatever, and then I can't follow my dream because I want to be in publishing and all the jobs are here and I'm based here. And it's like, well, just move. It's just
that's a bit narrow thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just either move there or be willing to travel there or come up with a different dream. Like if you have a dream and you put the barriers in yourself,
Exactly.
then it's not a dream. It's just making yourself depressed over something for no reason.
Yeah,
Like,
there will
actually
always
try.
be barriers, but if you put them up yourself, like, hang on, why am I putting
Yeah,
up this?
yeah.
You just work it out.
I'm just causing a problem for myself.
Be curious. That's
Yeah.
another thing. Just like, I love being curious. Just ask questions and then listen.
Well, I've met a guy, Jonathan, can't remember his surname, owned a telecoms company, and he's one of the youngest people to found a company that ended up in the FTSE, whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked him how he got there, and he said, basically being happy to be the idiot in the room. And every board meeting, he would be sat there going, sorry, I don't have a clue what you're
This
saying.
is
Can
what I
you
do."
take 20 minutes to explain this to me? And making them explain. But what he was doing is he was assimilating all of that information. And then later on down the line, that person would say something and go, no. I know what you're talking about, and you're talking bollocks.
Yeah.
And he actually became a sum of all of that knowledge he'd assimilated in that time, and basically made it so he didn't need those people advising him now, because actually he'd learnt enough from them, and he had to then move people on and do all sorts of other things, because it was that phases thing.
There's no such thing as a silly question.
No, exactly. But yeah, I always make myself look like if my default position is looking like a tit. So on that basis, it makes life a lot easier.
And on that note,
yeah. Well, that is pretty much the end. Yes. Welcome to me. I'm an idiot.
It's the same as my world.
Thank you for coming to see us. And,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And if we're both around and still talking to each other in 20 years' time, I'm well up for doing a rerun of Did We Change the World or Did the Wheels Fall Off?
Thanks for having me. Good luck with it all.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Great to sit down and chat.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers, Alex.